You may believe that pursuing someone harder will eventually make them realize how much they care. But when you are dealing with an avoidant person, constant pursuit can create the opposite reaction. What if the thing that leaves the deepest impression is not another message, another explanation, or another attempt to get closer, but a few calm words followed by the willingness to step back? There can be a moment in an avoidant connection when your words suddenly reach somewhere deeper than expected. People with avoidant tendencies often protect themselves by creating distance, controlling emotional exposure, and carefully deciding how close someone is allowed to get. Yet even strong defenses can become uncertain when they encounter something unexpected. Not desperation, not pleading, not pressure. Instead, they encounter emotional composure. In this script, we are exploring 6 psychological truths that explain why this kind of response can have such a powerful effect. It is not about manipulating someone into wanting you. It is about becoming secure enough in yourself that your presence remains meaningful even when you stop trying to force closeness. When you calmly tell them, "I understand, and I'm not going to chase you," something unexpected can happen inside the dynamic between you. They may be familiar with a very different pattern. They create distance, and the other person immediately tries to close that distance. They become quieter, and the other person sends more messages. They withdraw, and someone starts explaining, convincing, questioning, or pleading. Over time, this becomes predictable. But when you respond without panic, you interrupt that familiar cycle. You communicate that you are not trying to win their affection by abandoning yourself. You recognize their need for space while also recognizing your own worth. That shift can feel unsettling because avoidant behavior often gives a person a sense of control over emotional closeness. They decide when to approach and when to retreat. But when you stop reacting to every movement, the rhythm changes. You are no longer waiting anxiously for their next decision. You simply allow them their space while remaining grounded in yourself. That calm response can create a form of emotional curiosity. Instead of experiencing you as someone demanding access to them, they may begin experiencing you as someone emotionally steady. Your composure tells them that you understand what is happening without needing to control the outcome. That can be surprisingly powerful. You are not trying to tear down their defenses, and you are not demanding that they immediately become emotionally available. You are simply refusing to lose yourself because someone else has become distant. There is a major difference between emotional detachment and emotional maturity. Detachment says, "I do not care." Maturity says, "I care, but I will not abandon myself to prove it." When they sense that difference, their perception of you can change. Your presence begins to represent calm rather than conflict. Your words begin to carry more weight because they are supported by your behavior. You said you would not chase, and then you actually stepped back. That consistency can make your absence much more noticeable than another emotional conversation ever could. Once the pressure disappears, they may have more room to process what happened. They can begin thinking about your words without simultaneously defending themselves against another demand for closeness. They may wonder why you did not argue, why you did not try to convince them, and why you seemed capable of walking away without turning the situation into a battle. Your absence can create mental space where your presence previously created emotional pressure. This does not mean every avoidant person will suddenly return or become emotionally available. People are different, and healthy connection cannot be guaranteed through a particular sentence. But what can change is the dynamic. You stop participating in the cycle of pursuing and withdrawing. Your distance is not intended to punish them. It simply communicates that you have emotional boundaries. You are saying, in effect, "I care about what we have, but I will not force something that requires two willing people." That kind of self-respect can leave a much stronger impression than desperation ever could. There is another statement that can shift the entire emotional atmosphere. "I deserve emotional availability, even if it is not something you can give me." The power of those words comes from where they are coming from. They are not an accusation. They are not an attempt to make the other person feel guilty. They are a declaration about what you are willing to accept in your own life. People with avoidant tendencies may become accustomed to relationships where others continually adjust around their limitations. Someone gives them more time, accepts inconsistent communication, overlooks emotional distance, and keeps waiting for the relationship to become something different. So when you calmly establish that emotional availability matters to you, you are no longer asking them to change for your approval. You are simply explaining the standard you need for your own emotional well-being. That distinction matters. You are not saying, "Become available so I can finally feel worthy." You are saying, "I know what kind of connection allows me to thrive, and I will not pretend that something less is enough." That kind of boundary can be unfamiliar because it removes the possibility of keeping you emotionally invested without offering genuine closeness in return. You are no longer trying to prove that you are patient enough, understanding enough, or loving enough to make their defenses disappear. You are allowing their behavior to belong to them while taking responsibility for your own choices. And that can create reflection. They may begin noticing that your emotional stability is no longer dependent on whether they move toward you or away from you. They may remember conversations differently. They may think about the moments when you remained patient, the times you respected their space, and the ways you cared without demanding that they immediately become someone they were not ready to be. The important part is that you are no longer using your love as a reason to tolerate everything. You are demonstrating that care and boundaries can exist together. Love does not require you to surrender your standards. There is often a hidden contradiction within emotional avoidance. A person may genuinely want connection while simultaneously becoming uncomfortable when connection becomes too intimate. They may appreciate being cared for while fearing the vulnerability that comes with accepting that care. They may desire closeness and then retreat when it begins to feel real. When you stop responding to that contradiction by chasing them, you give them an opportunity to recognize it for themselves. You are no longer constantly managing their discomfort for them. Instead, they are left with their own feelings. Your calmness can become a contrast to the emotional turbulence they experience internally. They may begin to see that closeness does not always have to mean pressure, and independence does not have to mean emotional isolation. You are modeling another possibility. Two people can care about each other without one person losing themselves. There can be affection without control, boundaries without punishment, and independence without emotional abandonment. That is a different model of connection, and sometimes a different model is what creates the deepest reflection. The more consistently you live that way, the more powerful the message becomes. You are not withdrawing to make them jealous. You are not pretending not to care so they will panic. You are not using silence as a psychological trick. You are simply refusing to participate in a relationship pattern that requires you to constantly pursue someone who keeps moving away. That difference is essential. Manipulation is designed to produce a reaction. Self-respect is designed to protect your well-being. When your actions come from self-respect, you no longer need to monitor whether they noticed, whether they miss you, or whether they will come back. Your attention returns to your own life. And ironically, that is often when your presence becomes more noticeable. They may realize that you were never trying to control them. You were simply trying to connect with them while maintaining your own identity. Once that becomes clear, your independence can feel very different from rejection. It becomes evidence that you can love someone without losing yourself. When you tell them something like, "I respect myself enough to wait for a relationship that is emotionally available, but I will not sacrifice my value to keep someone close," you communicate something much deeper than a boundary. You communicate that your self-worth is not something another person gets to determine. You are not threatening to leave. You are not demanding that they immediately change. You are simply making it clear that authentic connection has requirements, and emotional availability is one of them. That can challenge the assumptions an avoidant person may have developed about relationships. They may be accustomed to believing that closeness eventually becomes overwhelming, controlling, or demanding. But your behavior shows another possibility. You can care deeply and still have limits. You can give someone space without disappearing into their needs. You can remain compassionate without accepting inconsistency forever. You can be emotionally open without becoming emotionally dependent. That combination can be difficult to dismiss because it reflects a kind of stability that does not demand anything from them while still demanding honesty from the relationship. Over time, they may begin connecting your presence with something they do not often experience in relationships: emotional safety without emotional pressure. Your calmness can stand out because it does not require them to defend themselves. Your boundaries can stand out because they are not delivered through anger. Your independence can stand out because it does not come from bitterness, and your care can stand out because it does not require you to chase. This is where your influence becomes less about what you say and more about what you embody. You become an example of someone who can remain loving without becoming desperate, patient without becoming passive, and strong without becoming cold. Their defenses may still exist, and they may still need time to work through their own patterns. But your behavior gives them something to think about. They may begin to understand that your love was never about possessing them or forcing intimacy. It was about creating the possibility of genuine connection while respecting both people's freedom. That is what makes your presence difficult to reduce to something ordinary. And ultimately, the strongest message is not any particular sentence you can memorize and use on an avoidant person. It is the person you become when you stop measuring your worth by someone else's availability. Saying, "I understand, but I am not going to chase you," only carries meaning when you genuinely mean it. Saying, "I deserve emotional availability," only becomes powerful when you are willing to honor that standard yourself. The goal is not to make someone afraid of losing you. The goal is to become so grounded in your own emotional value that you no longer need to create fear to be appreciated. If an avoidant person eventually moves toward you with greater openness, you can meet them there. If they do not, your self-respect still remains intact. That is the real transformation. You stop trying to convince someone to recognize your value and start living as though your value was never up for negotiation. Your presence becomes powerful not because you learned how to make someone chase you, but because you learned how to stop chasing yourself for someone else's approval. They may not consciously understand what has changed, but something within them can register the difference. Your calmness carries a quiet authority that can create curiosity and reflection. When you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you begin demonstrating it through the way you carry yourself. That is what can stay with an avoidant person even when you are no longer around. They may find themselves remembering your tone, the way you responded, the patience you showed, and the fact that you did not fall apart when they created distance. They may wonder why you did not chase harder or demand another explanation. Over time, that reflection can create a sense of longing, but it is important to understand that healthy longing is not obsession. It is recognition. It is the realization that they encountered someone who could care deeply while remaining grounded. You showed them that love can exist alongside independence, clarity, boundaries, and genuine self-respect. Your emotional steadiness can become a completely different model of connection from what they may have experienced before. You are showing that affection does not have to come with constant pressure, emotional chaos, or fear of abandonment. You can care about someone without making them responsible for your happiness. You can communicate honestly without blaming them. You can remain open-hearted without allowing another person's distance to determine your emotional state. That combination can be difficult for an avoidant person to dismiss because it represents something they may secretly desire: connection without feeling trapped. When they notice that your peace does not depend on whether they choose you today, they may begin seeing your value differently. You are no longer asking them to validate your importance. You are carrying that knowledge yourself. Even when you are absent, that kind of presence can linger because it was never built on pressure. It was built on authenticity, emotional maturity, and the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are whole. There is another statement that can communicate this shift with remarkable clarity. "I'm not angry, I just understand things differently now." Those words can completely change the emotional atmosphere because they do not invite an argument. Someone who is accustomed to emotional reactions may expect frustration, accusations, repeated questions, or attempts to force an explanation. Instead, you offer calm understanding. You are no longer trying to win a debate or make them feel guilty for creating distance. You are simply acknowledging what you have observed and what it means for you. That can be unsettling because anger gives people something to defend against. Clarity does not. When you become emotionally neutral, you are no longer participating in the cycle of conflict and withdrawal. You are saying that you have noticed the pattern and no longer need chaos to understand it. Your calmness communicates that you have reached a conclusion without needing their permission to reach it. That kind of emotional independence can be far more powerful than confrontation. Avoidant tendencies can involve an internal conflict between wanting connection and feeling threatened by emotional vulnerability. A person may desire intimacy while simultaneously finding reasons to retreat from it. When you calmly say that you understand what is happening, you are not claiming to know every thought inside their mind. You are simply acknowledging what their behavior has shown you. That can create reflection because you are no longer reacting to the surface event. You are responding to the pattern. Instead of trying to prove that they are wrong, you are showing that you have learned something about yourself and about the relationship. You have recognized what drains you, what confuses you, and what no longer aligns with your emotional needs. That is growth, and growth often looks surprisingly quiet. There is no dramatic exit speech, no attempt to punish them, and no need to make them regret their behavior. There is simply a person who has stopped fighting reality. That calm acceptance can leave a deeper impression because it tells them that their usual defenses no longer determine your emotional state. When you stop reacting from hurt and start responding from awareness, the entire dynamic can change. You are no longer trying to force them to care, and you are not looking for validation to confirm that your feelings were justified. You are simply standing in your own truth. That can command respect because it shows internal strength without aggression. Your calmness may even cause them to replay the interaction afterward. They might wonder when you became so composed, why you did not argue, or why your response felt so different from what they expected. The important thing is that you are not performing confidence for their benefit. You are genuinely becoming less dependent on their reaction. That is why silence can become meaningful when it follows clarity. You have already communicated what matters, so you no longer need to keep explaining yourself. You have moved from emotional dependency toward emotional awareness. You are not angry because you have discovered that fighting for something that repeatedly hurts you is not the same as loving someone. Then there is the simple statement, "I genuinely wish you the best." When those words come from a sincere place, they can communicate an enormous amount of emotional maturity. You are not saying them to provoke jealousy or secretly hoping they will panic at the thought of losing you. You are acknowledging that another person has the right to choose their path, even when that choice is painful for you. Avoidant people may be accustomed to others trying to convince them to stay, asking them to change, or becoming increasingly emotional when they pull away. So when you respond with grace instead of pressure, you interrupt that familiar cycle. You demonstrate that love does not have to mean possession. You can care about someone and still release them. You can be disappointed without becoming bitter. You can accept an ending without turning it into revenge. That kind of emotional freedom can feel unexpectedly safe because there is no demand attached to it. You are giving them space while also giving yourself permission to move forward. There is a powerful paradox here. When you stop trying to hold someone in place, you remove the pressure that may have made closeness uncomfortable for them in the first place. But this does not mean you should release someone as a strategy to make them return. That would simply turn self-respect into another form of pursuit. The real value is that you are choosing peace whether they come back or not. You are no longer making your happiness conditional on their decision. Saying, "I wish you the best," becomes meaningful because you are not secretly attaching a demand to it. You are saying, "I cared about you and I still want good things for you, but I also want good things for myself." That level of acceptance can remain in someone's memory because it feels different from emotional pleading. They may remember the kindness of being released without resentment. And sometimes what lingers most is not the person who fought desperately to stay, but the person who cared enough to let go without becoming cruel. When you choose peace instead of constantly proving your worth, you dismantle another unhealthy dynamic. You no longer participate in the idea that love must be earned by becoming more patient, more understanding, more available, or more willing to tolerate inconsistency. Your value does not rise or fall according to someone's approval. That realization can completely change how you carry yourself. Instead of asking, "What can I do to make them recognize what I offer?" you begin asking, "Does this relationship recognize what I need?" That is a much healthier question. Avoidant tendencies can involve strong discomfort around dependence, so someone who appears emotionally self-contained may feel different from the relationships they are used to. Your peace does not communicate arrogance, it communicates stability. You know who you are even when someone disagrees with you, misunderstands you, or chooses distance. You are no longer trying to convince them that you are valuable. You are simply living from that assumption. And when you stop performing for approval, your confidence becomes quieter, more natural, and far more difficult to dismiss. There is also a sense of closure in choosing peace. It means you are finished trying to decode every mixed signal, chase every moment of warmth, or turn every period of distance into an emergency. You are no longer treating confusion as something you must solve at any cost. You are choosing clarity instead. For someone accustomed to emotional cycles, your refusal to participate in that turbulence may feel unfamiliar. Yet there can also be something deeply reassuring about it. You are demonstrating that love does not need constant instability to feel real. You can care without creating drama. You can be disappointed without becoming destructive. You can step away without hatred. Your peace becomes a reflection of the inner stability you have developed. You did not choose calm because you stopped caring. You chose calm because you finally understood that caring about someone should not require abandoning yourself. That distinction changes everything. Your self-respect becomes part of your identity rather than a temporary reaction to someone else's behavior, and that is what makes it genuine. Another powerful statement is, "I respect your space, but I also respect my needs." Few things communicate emotional balance more clearly. You are acknowledging their boundaries without erasing your own. You are not demanding closeness, but you are also not agreeing to remain indefinitely in an emotionally unfulfilling situation. People with avoidant tendencies may be accustomed to one of two extremes. Someone becomes increasingly demanding when they pull away, or someone disappears completely because the distance becomes too painful. But there is another possibility. You can understand their need for space while remaining honest about what you need from a relationship. That creates balance. You are not crowding them, and you are not abandoning yourself. You are giving them room without making yourself invisible. This can challenge old assumptions about intimacy because it shows that closeness does not have to mean losing freedom. Two people can maintain individuality while still caring deeply for each other. Healthy connection does not require one person to become smaller so the other can feel comfortable. Your ability to respect their space while honoring your own needs can also communicate that your presence is a choice, not a burden. You are not waiting for them to fulfill every emotional expectation before deciding that you are worthy. You already know your worth. You are simply determining whether the relationship is capable of meeting you where you are. That distinction can change the way an avoidant person perceives closeness. They may have learned to associate another person's needs with pressure or suffocation, but your behavior offers a different example. You can have needs without making them responsible for your entire emotional life. You can ask for consistency without demanding constant access. You can give someone breathing room without pretending you do not need connection. That is emotional self-sufficiency. It does not mean needing nothing from anyone. It means being able to acknowledge what you need without turning those needs into demands for someone else's identity to change. That kind of balance can create a sense of safety because there is room for both people to remain themselves. Over time, the message can become clearer. Respecting someone's space does not mean accepting emotional neglect, and honoring your own needs does not mean controlling another person. It means creating room for honesty. You are showing that love can exist without possession, closeness can exist without suffocation, and independence can exist without emotional abandonment. That balance may cause an avoidant person to reconsider some of their assumptions about relationships. They may remember your calm tone and the way you handled distance without turning it into a crisis. They may remember that you did not demand access to every part of them, but you also did not erase your own needs to keep them comfortable. That combination can create a different emotional experience. They feel understood without feeling controlled. They see boundaries without experiencing punishment. They experience care without being asked to surrender their independence. And whether or not they are ready to act on that realization, the example itself can remain with them. You have shown them that emotional maturity is not about eliminating needs. It is about holding needs and freedom at the same time. Ultimately, what makes this approach powerful is not a perfect sentence, a psychological trick, or some secret method for making an avoidant person chase you. It is the emotional state behind your words. When you stop pursuing someone out of fear and start living from self-respect, everything changes. You become less focused on getting a reaction and more focused on building a life that does not collapse when someone becomes distant. That is the kind of strength that cannot be manufactured through manipulation. Avoidant tendencies may respond differently to emotional calm, but no particular behavior can guarantee that someone will return, change, or become ready for intimacy. Your real victory is not making them stay. It is refusing to abandon yourself in order to make them stay. You can see them, understand them, and care about them while still seeing yourself clearly. You can love without losing your identity. And when someone walks away, you can allow them to go without allowing their decision to define your worth. That is the quiet strength people remember long after the conversation is over.